Today's sermon was inspired by a talk I heard by Reverend Ken Ross. Welcome again, UUCP. What a delight this is. Our first in-person sermon in a very long time. Does anybody remember the last time we met in person?
March 2020.
March 8th, 2020. Close. You are the closest. It was March 8th, 2020. And does anybody remember the name of the service? All right. Well, I remember it because it was the first service I did with you. Strangely enough, and it was the last one we had in person. All right, I don't know.
You're still here.
I'm still here, and I wasn't even really part of the community. It was more a trial run, you know. I'm like, all right. Well, hopefully that wasn't any kind of direction. But it was 111 Sundays ago. 111 Sundays.
Wow.
Oddly, yes, it was my first, and it was called, the talk was called 2020 Inner Vision. And it really was an invitation to look inside and how we could impact our lives. And it's funny, that's been like a core quality of many of the talks that I think I've shared since. Well, I'm grateful I had that moment with all of you to meet you, at least some of you in person that day, 111 Sundays ago. We shared greetings, warm smiles, and hugs. It was a wonderful day of human interaction and the beginning of relationships. It was a pleasure, and it was, again, just before COVID fully changed our lives. None of us knew the world was going to take the turn that it did. And now I stand with you as one of your ministers in person, so it's very special. At least it's certainly for me, and I'm sure for all of you to be here. So how does it feel to be back together? Wow. Nice. Somebody asked, what have you missed?
Coffee hour.
Coffee hour. Coffee hour. Coffee. Anybody else? What have you missed? Hugs, Michael. Hugs. And you're such a wonderful hugger.
Mm-hmm.
Second that. Hugs. Anything else?
No Zoom.
Life previous to Zoom. Community?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
Interaction.
And if you're on Zoom, go ahead and type your thoughts into your chat box. And we will acknowledge your thoughts. Yes, all of those things. During this time of COVID, many of us, especially those of us who live alone or whose children or other families live at a distance, have really missed embracing those we care about a lot. Care and love. I missed the opportunity to hug my brother and family who live in Connecticut. I had gone the longest in my life without seeing or embracing them. My nephews and nieces had grew tall and changed during that COVID time in ways that I couldn't recognize on Zoom. It wasn't evident. Many of you in this congregation do have grown children, grandchildren, and other close family members and friends who you had been separated from for a significant amount of time, including all of us. This aspect of not being able to touch each other was impactful to us in many profound ways. Many people became cautious or uncomfortable to be close to others. And we had an opportunity to begin to explore our own comfort zones. Who do we choose to embrace? Do we feel safe to be in close quarters with them? Thank God there's been a lot of reuniting these days, which is fantastic. It's been an opportunity to recognize the gift of being able to share connection through human touch and how much we need it. Can everybody in the back hear me clearly?
Yes.
Yeah, great.
We had two people who were on Zoom who wanted to add.
Yes.
One said they missed community and the other said I missed conversation after the service.
Great. And who said they missed community?
I don't know, it just says Zoom user.
Zoom user, okay. Well, may I say that one more time?
Zoom user said community.
So a Zoom user said community. I'm repeating this so that you can hear me.
SF, I'm not sure what SF is. I missed conversation after the service.
And they missed conversation after the service. Those are great things to bring in. And thank you for pointing that out. So here we are in person, and a common question for today may be, and we've already gone through a lot of this, can I have a hug? Another question might be, are you hugging? Is it okay? We might say the actual words, or we might gesture physically like this, right? And give that look like, is it okay? Are you embracing? Well, somehow in the last 2 years, we've become very aware of our need to offer consent as to whether to be touched or embraced. But we also, we also need this. We need this on our own terms. So with that, today we're going to talk about two things. We're going to talk about the importance of embracing each other and experiencing human touch and how much we need it, and also how important it is to offer our consent to being touched by other beings. Humans are wired to be touched. From birth until the day we die, our need for physical contact remains. From a warm handshake to a sympathetic hug or a congratulatory, God bless you, a congratulatory pat on the back. We have developed complex languages, physical languages that communicate by touching. Many of these are cultural and are expressed in this physical contact. But in a tech-filled world that we live in now, platonic human touch is in danger of becoming rare, if not obsolete in some cases. Despite the benefits of digital achievement, it is vital to preserve human touch in order for us to thrive. Touch deprivation occurs when a person experiences little to no touch from other living beings. You might ask, is this real? Well, yes, it is. And many physicians, scholars, therapists, people that know a lot more about these things than I all validate that fact. This condition seems to be more common, this touch deprivation, in countries that are becoming more adverse to human touch. There's certain cultures that are not as touchy and feely as others. So Dr. Nicole McNichols shares the following in her article, The Vital Importance of Human Touch, and she shares that according to research, a hug may make an individual feel happy by reducing feelings of loneliness and physical effects of stress. Hugs can change negative moods by helping the body and brain, by boosting feel-good hormones. Hugs release hormones. Isn't that interesting? Here's a few of them. Dopamine, which is the pleasure hormone. Serotonin, which is the antidepressant hormone. Oxytocin, which is the love hormone. And these all have a number of positive results. For example, some of them help weight loss, lowers blood pressure, fights disease, increases libido, reduces stress, and gives us a feeling of comfort. A 10-second hug helps the body fight infections, depression, and tiredness.
Ooh, wow.
Just think how exhilarated we're going to be after this gathering. A 20-second hug reduces stress, lowers blood pressure, and supports a healthy heart. So why aren't we hugging all the time?
Get a rest.
Get arrested, Mickey says. Oh, that's great. Well, so why aren't we hugging all the time? It's a good question. It feels so good. You would wonder why we don't hug every few minutes. Well, being Unitarian Universalists, our beliefs vary for sure. Probably more than any other religious group or faith group. We all come from different cultures and backgrounds and history. And each of those variables impacts us with different expectations about personal space and physical touch. Our expectations around personal space and touch are rooted in history, in our histories. So part of our personal history now is having lived through a deadly global pandemic for 2 years and having had significant isolation during that time. It's pretty traumatic, honestly. So as individuals and in community, we're all chewing on how we will physically be with each other and how we will define our boundaries. How will we respect what feels comfortable and safe for the people we care about as well, not just our boundaries, but the ones we love and care for. Consent is the whole arena of ethics, defining our personal rights and how we allow other people to treat us. It's dependent on the type of relationship you have with someone, and it changes the moral aspect of your relationship. Consent is a way that we monitor the boundary of our property and our bodies. And it's through consent that we're able to decide how other people will treat us, will interact with us. You may have noticed I kept putting on my mask before I would hug any of you. It's not that I was worried about getting COVID, but I was certainly worried about giving COVID because I see this, everything that I'm doing is going to affect the next person I hug after me right now in this very insular group. So I was concerned about that. That was my thinking. But in most cases, if I'm just one-on-one, I might not. But that's just my thinking in this situation. Just wanted to share that. So a little bit about consent and a little bit about my story. Most of you know I'm Armenian. I grew up in an Armenian household. Hugging and touching were normal, and we children were discouraged from having any physical boundaries, as many of us were as children. My mother's female friends, to whom I was directed to refer to as Auntie. Everybody was Auntie. They would come in the house. As soon as they saw me, they would begin to pinch my cheeks. And they would hang on to those cheeks, squeeze them until they turned red, and often hurt. And I sometimes wonder if that is why I have these very full cheeks. I think they were created. And I think it came from the swelling of that pinching from my aunties. How many of you had aunties that pinched your cheeks or uncles or people? That wasn't part of your culture? Oh my God, you're so lucky. I would run when they come. But it's not uncommon for women of my age group to have been socialized to have people touch our bodies without our consent. Sometimes even in an awkward situation, we're busy laughing off the discomfort of someone being in our space that we don't even realize how uncomfortable we were until after it's all over. After we finish laughing it off, we go, oh, that didn't feel good. Unfortunately, I'm sure most, if not all, the women in this room have had multiple experiences of uncomfortable and unsolicited touching by strangers. And many men as well, just human beings. I remember being at an event in my early 20s where a young man kept trying to put his arm around me. Although I was politely attempting to move away from his advances, I was very passive especially when I was younger. You know, I was that person that people would try to take advantage of, especially guys when I was young, because I didn't have that, that boldness. This guy was relentless. I was with my friend that kept trying to move away from him. And eventually, in his attempt to put his arms around me, he tapped into the glass that I was drinking from, chipped my tooth. I always remember that that's what happens when I'm not clear about my boundaries. My friend Marianne grabbed the guy because she was very clear about boundaries, straightened him out very quickly. I'm going to cycle forward to a connected experience that happened just a few weeks ago. Many of you know I went to Antigua. I was there with friends, and it was great fun. And every evening at the resort, they had dancing and music and interactive events where everyone was invited to participate. And one evening, while I was entering and walking through into the lounge area, a woman approached me asking me to dance and touching me repeatedly, getting in my space. And I said, no, thank you, several times. And, and eventually she went away. About 15 minutes later, I'm sitting down, she comes over and starts doing that again. And I said, no, thank you. And then I said, after she didn't stop, very clearly and very boldly, you don't know me. Please don't touch me. I said it twice. The second time, she got very clear and she moved away. I felt a little bit like I was being rude, but I made my point clear. It was also, in addition, I was going to fly back to the United States. If I got COVID, I would be stuck abroad. I was monitoring my space. So other situations besides something like I had described, where people are uncomfortable about being touched aside from COVID, may be physical pain in our bodies. Sometimes we might have had surgery, right? Or some kind of physical discomfort that we're struggling with. A hug could add additional pain to what's already going on with our bodies. I know as a person that's had breast cancer, you're going to avoid hugs for a period of time after surgery or treatment. And you don't necessarily always want to explain the whole thing to someone, but you need to have autonomy over your body. Some of us have problems with our shoulders or our neck or back problem or whatever it is. There's just so much. We don't always know what's going on in another person's life. When I was in seminary, we were very close, all of us. We were very entwined. And it was a natural desire to just want to embrace, just grab each other and hug each other. But they made it very clear to us that it was essential to ask or gesture or make it clear that there is, and is it okay, before we actually hugged another person. Some people were victims of sexual assault, or male or female, or abuse, or different things that we didn't know about that caused them a lot of pain. So touching somebody is a little more than, we don't always know what's going on in another person. We don't know their experience. We can't assume we know what's going on. So inviting consent to be part of our life and our interaction with others actually creates better, deeper, and more intimate relationships. A congregation like ours is the perfect place where we can give and receive the warmth of human embrace. For some UU gatherings, this is one of the few places that we could freely and really share appropriate touch and that loving quality to it. Consent is sometimes awkward to talk about, but it's not an excuse for not communicating about it clearly. In our communicating consent clearly, we have an opportunity to not just have autonomy over our bodies, but we get to model for generations to come how to have healthy boundaries with our bodies and in our relationships to those that are coming after us. Remember, consent is not always a no, it could be a yes. Being with each other here at our Sunday services, we model how we would like to be in the world. We get to practice being our best selves for a few hours. We can hopefully do this each week. And we could bring that best self of ourselves and that invitation out into the world as we leave this service. In upholding the inherent dignity and worth of each person, considering consent is a significant part of this work to bring into our minds and into our lives. Honoring people's boundaries through consent is a method to alter our patriarchal culture that has historically dismissed women's physical boundaries. It also shifts us away from the racism that stripped autonomy from the bodies of people of color who were used as a tool for labor. Asking for people's consent is a cultural shift towards freedom, love, and respect. My hope for this sermon was to offer us food for thought about the incredible gift of sharing our loving embrace with each other and also compassionately sharing our boundaries. There are many ways to recognize spirituality in the world and in each other. When we lead with love and caring in how we interact with each other, we know we are walking the spiritual path.
If you like this video, please like us on YouTube, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and click on the bell to be notified whenever we post a new video. Thank you.